Welcome back to the Journeyman Podcast, everyone. It's episode 30. Can you believe it?
30 episodes already, wow.
I want to give a huge thank you to our amazing director for giving us such fascinating stuff to talk about. For 30 episodes, you're the best.
You really are.
And of course, a big shout out to all of you amazing listeners out there. We couldn't do this without you.
That's right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And hey, if you like what you hear today, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on future deep dives. Today, we're diving into a topic that's been making headlines and sparking some pretty heated debates: the crazy world of cryptocurrency.
Oh, yeah. Things have been wild lately, haven't they?
Yeah, especially in early 2025, it's been a roller coaster ride. And we're going to take a special look at how Donald Trump's been shaking things up. To help us make sense of it all, we have our expert here with us, ready to connect the dots and give us some insights. Are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
All right. Now, anyone who's been following crypto knows it's known for its volatility. But even seasoned traders were surprised by what went down a few weeks ago.
Definitely late February 2025. Bitcoin was hitting all-time highs, soaring above $100,000. Seemed like nothing could stop it. But then, bam, it took a total nosedive, plunging over 20% to below $90,000. First time since November.
Wow, a 20% drop. That's not just a dip, that's a full-on crash. What on earth caused that? Was it just one thing or a bunch of factors?
Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was like a perfect storm. You had global markets experiencing what they call a risk-off sentiment, worries about potential tariffs, rising inflation, interest rates going up.
So basically everyone was nervous and not feeling crypto.
Yeah, exactly. People get jittery and less likely to hold on to risky assets when things feel shaky. And then on top of that, you had some crypto-specific events that made things even worse.
Okay, like what?
Well, remember the Bybit crypto exchange? It got hit with a massive hack, almost $1.5 billion worth of Ethereum stolen.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That must have really freaked people out.
Yeah, understandably so. It was a huge blow to investor confidence. And then there was that whole meme coin craze. Remember that?
Oh yeah, the meme coins. Wasn't that somehow connected to the Trump family?
Yeah, it was fueled by social media hype. And yeah, there were definitely some links to the Trump family. And that whole thing, while it can be fun, it definitely added to the market's sense of instability and distrust. I mean, these meme coins, they can rise and fall so fast, you know? It just highlights how speculative the market can be.
Yeah, totally. And it's fascinating how all these seemingly unrelated events can come together and impact the market. But here's where things get really interesting. Despite this downturn, crypto had a big surge in early March. And guess what was behind it?
Wait, let me guess Donald Trump.
You got it.
Yeah.
Trump announces that the U.S. is going to create a crypto strategic reserve.
A crypto strategic reserve, like oil or gold.
Exactly. Stockpiling Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and Cardano. And that announcement, well, it sent shockwaves through the market. Prices skyrocketed. Bitcoin alone jumped over 10%, climbing back up to almost $93,000.
It's really interesting that he included not just Bitcoin, but also those other altcoins. A pretty clear signal there that the broader crypto landscape is gaining acceptance. You know, this could mean a big shift towards mainstream adoption and maybe even some more regulatory clarity.
Right. It's like the U.S. government is finally giving crypto its stamp of approval, despite all the previous chaos. But speaking of different perspectives on crypto, there's Cathie Wood, CEO of ARK Invest, and she is super bullish on Bitcoin no matter what.
Oh, yeah, she's a big believer, isn't she?
Huge believer. Even with all the volatility we've seen, she's sticking to her prediction that by 2030, Bitcoin could be worth anywhere between $300,000 and, get this, $1.5 million.
Wow, those are some bold predictions. But why is she so confident when the market seems so, I don't know, unpredictable?
Well, she's looking at a few key things. For one, she sees more and more institutional adoption of Bitcoin. You've got hedge funds, corporations, even some governments starting to see Bitcoin as a legitimate asset class.
Right, so they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. And that's creating a surge in demand that she doesn't see slowing down anytime soon. And on top of that, she thinks regulations surrounding crypto are going to become more favorable in the coming years, maybe even leading to the approval of Bitcoin ETFs, making it easier for everyone to invest.
So more accessibility, more mainstream adoption. That's the key to her bullish outlook.
Exactly. Now, while we're dreaming of Bitcoin hitting $1 million, let's come back down to earth for a second and talk about what's happening right now. Analysts are glued to those charts, watching the crucial support levels for Bitcoin, trying to figure out what's going to happen next. Can you break down what support levels are and why they matter so much?
Sure, think of support levels as psychological barriers in the market. Essentially, they're price points where buying interest is strong enough to prevent the price from dropping further. So if Bitcoin breaks below a certain support level, it can trigger a whole wave of selling as investors start to lose confidence. But if it holds above that support level, it could signal a rebound as buyers see it as a good deal and jump back in.
So it's like a battle between the bulls and the bears, each side trying to push the price in their direction.
Yeah.
And what's the key support level everyone's watching right now?
Right now, it's around $70,000. That's a significant price point because it was a previous low earlier this year. If Bitcoin falls below that, it could be a sign of further decline, maybe even down to $60,000 or lower. But if it manages to stay above $70,000, it could bounce back and start climbing again.
So $70,000 is the make or break point for Bitcoin in the short term. But let's switch gears for a minute and talk about another big factor influencing the crypto market: regulation. The crypto world, it's still kind of a regulatory Wild West out there, and that uncertainty is making a lot of investors nervous.
Absolutely. And there's this constant back and forth between people who think the market should regulate itself and those who think we need some rules to protect investors and prevent fraud.
Right, because if things are too loose, people could get taken advantage of.
Exactly. And this whole debate is happening at both the federal and state levels, which makes things even more complicated.
Yeah, for sure. And to give you an example of how complex this all is, remember those proposals for state-run Bitcoin reserves? They actually failed in Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming.
Oh, right.
And this was even with Trump being so vocal about his support for cryptocurrency.
Wow, that really highlights how tricky this whole thing is. It's not just about being pro-crypto or anti-crypto. There's
Yeah.
so many factors to consider. Practical concerns, financial risks, what voters think. It's a tough balancing act.
For sure. So it seems like the regulatory landscape is just as unpredictable as the crypto market itself.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But you know what else is unpredictable? Human psychology. And that plays a huge role in this whole crypto game too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. People often forget about the human element, but it's a big deal, especially in a fast-paced world like crypto. You've got fear and greed driving people to make impulsive decisions, and that can really impact how the market moves.
So is it fair to say that the crypto market is like a giant mirror, reflecting our own hopes, our anxieties, even our herd mentality? Like, how do those individual emotions actually translate into market trends and those big price swings we see?
Think about it this way. Every time someone buys or sells crypto, it's a decision made by a person, driven by their own reasons and beliefs. Multiply that by millions of people, and you get this incredibly complex interplay of human psychology shaping the market in real time.
Like a giant social experiment, but with real money on the line. And then you throw in social trends on top of that, which just adds another layer of complexity.
Yeah, like that whole meme coin craze, that was a perfect example of how social trends can influence the market.
Right. What do you think made meme coins such a big phenomenon, and what does their rise and fall tell us about the psychology of the crypto market?
Well, I think meme coins tapped into this feeling of belonging, a shared identity, even a bit of rebellion against the traditional financial
It's
system.
like we're going to create our own system with blackjack and
Exactly. And the internet, with its power to connect people with shared interests, amplified that whole effect. You had these online communities forming around specific meme coins. So you had this sense of community plus that fear of missing out, that FOMO, and it created this wave of buying, pushing prices up like crazy. But of course, like any bubble, it had to burst eventually.
so it was a bit of a social and financial experiment all rolled into one.
I would say so. But it was a harsh lesson for many, right?
Definitely a lesson learned the hard way. But I think the meme coin craze also tells us something else: the crypto market is changing. You have this new generation of investors coming in. They're more tech savvy, more comfortable with risk, and they're way more tuned in to online communities and that whole speculative side of crypto.
Yeah, absolutely. This new generation is changing the game, bringing a whole new energy to the market. They're challenging the old ways of doing things, embracing new technologies, and I think their influence is only going to grow in years to come.
It's definitely a fascinating shift.
For sure.
And speaking of things that shake up the crypto world, we can't forget about those big hacks that we've seen, like the Bybit hack. That was a huge wake-up call about the security risks in this industry.
Totally. The Bybit hack and others like it have really shown how vulnerable these centralized exchanges can be. It's not just about the money that gets stolen, it's about the damage to trust in the entire crypto ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because if people don't trust the system, they're not going to use it, right?
Exactly. These hacks make people nervous, they fuel those calls for tighter regulation, and they can definitely slow down mainstream adoption. It's a delicate balance.
Right, because we want to encourage innovation and growth in the crypto space, but we also need to make sure people are protected. And that brings us back to governments and regulators. They have a huge role to play in all of this.
For sure. They have to figure out how to strike that balance between encouraging innovation and protecting consumers. It's a tough job.
Yeah, like walking a tightrope.
Exactly. And that's part of what makes this whole thing so interesting. We're seeing this fundamental shift in how we think about finance technology, even governance. It's like a real-time experiment unfolding right before our eyes, full of surprises and challenges and incredible potential.
I couldn't agree more. It's definitely a journey, and speaking of journeys, I think it's time for us to move on to the next part of ours. When we come back, we'll be exploring how artificial intelligence is impacting the crypto market, the rise of decentralized finance, and the ongoing battle for the soul of Web3. Stay tuned, folks. We're just getting started.
Sounds good. Welcome back to the Journeyman podcast. Before we jump into the next part of our crypto deep dive, I wanted to go back to something we touched on earlier, that whole human element in the crypto market.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about how fear and greed can drive those crazy market swings.
Right, exactly. And it got me thinking about another big force that's shaping the tech landscape these days, artificial intelligence, or AI. It's starting to have a real impact on the crypto world, and I think we're just scratching the surface.
AI, it's definitely the buzzword of the moment, isn't it? Everywhere you look, everyone's talking about it. But when it comes to crypto, how is it actually being used?
Well, one big area is trading algorithms. These algorithms can analyze huge amounts of data, identify patterns, and execute trades super fast. In fact, they often outperform even the best human traders.
That's kind of scary. Does that mean human traders are going to be out of a job soon? Like, are we all going to be replaced by robots?
That's a question a lot of people are asking, but I don't think it's quite that simple. I think AI is more of a tool that can help us do our jobs better rather than replace us entirely. AI can handle those repetitive tasks, the number crunching, the split-second decision making. And that frees up human traders to focus on the bigger picture, things like risk management and portfolio strategy.
So it's more about humans and AI working together, combining our strengths.
Exactly. It's about using AI to make us better traders, not obsolete. And trading isn't the only area where AI is making a difference. It's also being used to improve security in the crypto space. Remember we talked about that Bybit hack?
Oh, yeah.
Well, AI-powered security systems can actually analyze transactions in real time and flag anything that looks suspicious. That can help prevent fraud before it even happens.
That's good to hear, especially when you think about how much money is flowing through the crypto world. Any extra layer of security is definitely welcome. Now, shifting gears a bit, I keep hearing about decentralized finance, or DeFi. It's another one of those buzzwords that's everywhere, but I'll be honest, I'm still a little fuzzy on what it actually is.
That's understandable. DeFi can be a bit tricky to wrap your head around at first. Imagine a whole financial system running on blockchain technology that operates outside the control of those big banks and institutions we're all used to. That's basically what DeFi is. It's a world where you can lend, borrow, trade, earn interest, all without needing those traditional intermediaries.
So it's like cutting out the middleman and giving individuals more control over their own finances. Sounds pretty empowering, but how does it actually work in real life?
Okay, let's say you want to earn interest on your savings. Instead of putting your money in a bank, you could lend it directly to other people or organizations through a DeFi platform. You decide the interest rate, you set the terms, and you earn a return on your investment, all without a bank taking a cut.
So it's like peer-to-peer lending, but for crypto. That's pretty cool. What about borrowing? How does that work in the DeFi world?
It's similar to lending, just in reverse. Let's say you need a loan. Instead of going to a bank and filling out tons of paperwork, you could borrow directly from others on a DeFi platform. You agree on the terms, the interest rate, and boom, you get the funds without having to deal with the bank.
So DeFi makes those financial services more accessible and maybe even cheaper for everyone.
Exactly. And because DeFi is built on blockchain, everything is transparent. You can see exactly where your money's going and how it's being used. No more shady backroom deals.
That transparency is a huge plus, especially after all the scandals and stuff we've seen with traditional finance. But is DeFi connected to that whole Web3 thing I keep hearing about?
It is. DeFi is often seen as a key part of Web3, that vision of a decentralized internet where users have more control over their data and their online experiences. It's about creating a more user-centric internet, free from the control of those big tech companies.
So it's like crypto, DeFi, Web3, They're all part of this movement toward a more decentralized and empowered digital world.
Yeah, exactly. They represent a shift away from centralized control and toward more individual autonomy.
It's a huge change, and like with any new technology, we need to approach it with caution. There are definitely risks involved, and DeFi is still evolving, so there will probably be bumps along the way.
You're right. We shouldn't get carried away by the hype. There's always another side to the coin.
Speaking of which, what about governments and regulators?
Hmm.
What role do they play in this evolving landscape? We've already seen some examples of how complex that relationship can be with those failed proposals for state-run Bitcoin reserves.
Yeah, it's a complicated relationship for sure. Governments are still figuring out how to approach this whole crypto thing.
Like, do they embrace it, try to control it, or just ignore it and hope it goes away?
That's the million-dollar question. And different countries are taking different approaches. Some are creating regulations to encourage innovation while protecting consumers, while others are more hesitant, waiting to see how things play out.
It's like a global chess game. Every country is making its move, trying to figure out the best strategy for this new digital world.
Exactly. And the outcome is still very uncertain. But one thing's for sure, crypto is here to stay. It's going to keep shaking things up and changing the world as we know it.
It's exciting and a little bit scary all at the same time, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're in the middle of a huge transformation, and it's
Yeah.
hard to predict where it's all going to lead. But that's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Now I think it's time for us to move on to the final part of our deep dive. We'll be exploring some of the real-world applications of crypto, the potential impact on governments and central banks, and the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
Sounds good to me. Let's wrap up this crypto journey.
Welcome back to the Journeyman Podcast for the final part of our crypto deep dive. We've covered so much ground, the ups and downs of the market, the influence of big names like Donald Trump, the rise of DeFi, the promise of Web3. It's been a whirlwind.
Yeah, it really has. We've explored the good, the bad, the complicated, and tried to make sense of it all. And, it's still changing so fast.
That's what makes it so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a lot about the potential of crypto, but I'm curious about its real-world impact right now. Are there any practical applications of crypto that are already making a difference?
Absolutely. Beyond the hype and the speculation, crypto is being used to tackle real problems and improve lives around the world. For instance, it's making it easier and cheaper for people to send money overseas, especially in places where traditional banking is limited.
Oh yeah, remittances. I've heard that's a big use case for crypto, especially in developing countries where sending money through regular channels can be a real pain.
Right, exactly. Crypto removes a lot of those barriers, making it faster, more secure, and way more affordable. And another area where it's making a difference is supply chain transparency.
Supply chain transparency, how does that work?
Crypto is being used to create supply chains that are more accountable and traceable, making sure products are sourced ethically and that you can track them from the very beginning to the end consumer.
So like if I buy a cup of coffee, I could actually trace those beans back to the farm where they were grown and see if the farmers got paid fairly.
Exactly. That kind of transparency is huge. Consumers are getting more and more interested in where their stuff comes from and how it's made, and crypto is giving them the tools to make ethical choices.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's great to see crypto being used for good, not just for making money.
Definitely. And there are other examples too. Crypto is making it easier to donate to charities, allowing people to track their donations in real time and make sure their money's being used effectively.
So it's like crypto is transforming from just a financial tool into a tool for social change.
I'd say so. It's inspiring to see how people are using it to make a positive impact.
It really is. Now, with all this talk of decentralization, what happens to governments and central banks? Do they just disappear?
That's a big question, and honestly, no one knows for sure. But the rise of crypto and DeFi definitely challenges the way we think about financial power and control. It creates both problems and opportunities for governments and central banks.
It's like a power struggle is happening.
You could say that. And how governments respond to this shift will have huge consequences for the global economy.
So some countries are embracing crypto, setting up regulations to encourage innovation, while others are taking a more cautious approach.
Right, and then there are those who see crypto as a threat and are trying to resist it. It's a global game of chess with everyone trying to figure out the best move.
But one thing's for sure, crypto isn't going away anytime soon.
Not a chance. It's already changing the world, and it's going to keep doing so.
It's a wild ride, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what the future holds.
Absolutely. There are so many possibilities, both good and bad. But the decisions we make now will shape that future.
It's up to all of us to figure out how to navigate this new world.
That's right. And on that note, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners. What are your thoughts on the future of crypto? Are you excited, worried, somewhere in between? Share your thoughts on social media using hashtag the Journeyman Podcast. We're all in this together, and the more perspectives we have, the better equipped we'll be to face the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
That's a great point. We can learn so much from each other. And that brings us to the end of our crypto special. A huge thank you to our incredible expert for sharing your knowledge and insights.
It's been a pleasure.
And of course, a massive thank you to all of our amazing listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Journeyman Podcast for more deep dives into the topics that matter. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those crypto dreams alive.